Freethought Forum, a program produced and funded by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. I'm Ralph Eisler.
And I'm Joe Barnhart, and it's a show that promotes rational thinking, we hope anyhow, and rooted in scholarship and science, and don't make excursions into the supernatural.
Okay, well, this is a call-in show. However, we only have one phone line. So if you can't get through, we invite you to tweet them to us at FFTVKNOX while we go over a few announcements. We invite you to start calling in now at the number on the screen. Get a pen and paper, and we'll give you our email address later in the show.
Okay, and then there's a group called the Atheist Society of Knoxville, frequently having what they call a fun group.
Yeah.
So, and that's at the West Hills Taps and Flats on Kingston Pike.
Right.
And then there's a book they display called The God Delusion, standing upright on the table, and the atheist experience says everyone is welcome for happy food, drink, and so forth.
Right.
And ask you, don't preach or punch.
Yeah, you can drink punch, but don't punch.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the Rationalists of East Tennessee have several regular monthly meetings. The first and third Sunday mornings are usually lectures or a lively roundtable discussion. The book club meets on the second Sunday, and the reflection group often gets together for a potluck lunch on the fourth Sunday. Visit our website for additional details, including times and locations. Our website is www.rationalist.org.
Okay, and our main topic today is America a Christian country? Before we take up the topic, then let's go to the news.
Okay, well, I only picked up one item in the news today that I thought was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
It was in the most recent letter from the newsletter from the Freedom from Religion Foundation. And it was an article that said NASA had awarded $1.108 million to the Center for Theological Inquiry. This is NASA now. And with this money, the center hired 11 theologians, 10 of them Christians, and only one actual science to foster theology's dialogue with astrobiology. Now, if you're having a little hard time getting this to come together, I am too, but I'm just reading what appeared in the foundation letter. Now, this wouldn't be a problem if the money were to be employed for real scientific studies, but here are the parts of the research to be included in the investigations. 1, formulating a Christian response to scientific studies on morality. I don't know why we would need a Christian response to studies on morality.
It's called being open-minded. I don't want to be an atheist fundamentalist or a Christian fundamentalist. You can learn from anybody.
But if you're going to have a scientific study, it a priori, is not prejudiced one way or the other.
Well, that's why it's called open-minded.
It seems like they're thinking it's got to be prejudiced against the Christian version. That's what I don't understand. Anyhow.
Well, a scientific approach basically is open-minded. That's empiricism.
Yes.
And that means you can learn from anybody. Even when you disagree, you still can learn from them.
I understand that. I'm not disputing that.
Go ahead.
Okay. Second thing the money would go to would be developing a new model of biblical interpretation. Number 3, relating themes from 1 Corinthians to astrobiology. I don't know what themes they're talking about.
Okay, we can deal with that in a minute.
Well, number 4, reconciling a potential astrobiology study with Christian theology, looking at how astrobiology would affect the Christian doctrine of redemption, examining Christian ethics and Christian doctrines of human obligation, looking at societal implications of astrobiology with theological ethics, and writing a monograph on Christian forgiveness. Now, I have to tell you, I think that this is real nonsense, and that if NASA is engaged in this, it's a blight on an otherwise distinguished history of scientific research.
Okay, we'll deal with that. Say you were an anthropologist. Then the first job of an anthropologist, when you study another culture, is to learn why it's meaningful to them. Not presuppose you're all stupid and you're bright, but find out why it's meeting their needs, and then what you can learn from them, even where you disagree with them.
I understand that, but that's not what this is saying. This is geared very much towards, I think, the Christian view of how would they treat aliens, okay, in some sense. And who cares how the Christians would treat aliens? The real problem is, how would we as a scientific community or as a secular society treat aliens? I don't care if I'm funding something that says, well, how would America treat aliens, or how would our ethics fit in with theirs? It's just all the religious stuff that is thrown into this.
Well, part of being American, as you and I both know, is we have diverse views, and so we have to live together, and if we're open-minded, to learn from each other. For example, is there anything a rational secularist could learn from the Apostle Paul? I think you could take much of the Apostle Paul and translate it into secular language by a sociologist and a psychologist, and it would make a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
The whole notion of grace, every culture needs grace.
What's grace? I mean, grace is you're getting, I know, exonerated for your misdeeds or something of the sort.
Yeah, for example.
But I don't do any misdeeds.
Well,
how about you?
That's called arrogance.
That's not.
Of course you do misdeeds.
Name one.
Okay, you're a driver, aren't you?
Sure.
Well, I don't want to be in your car if you don't think you make mistakes. You understand what I'm saying, exactly.
I haven't had a moving violation ever.
Well, would you agree you can be self-righteous and an atheist?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Sure. Okay, well, anyhow, enough banter maybe. So our main topic here is America, a Christian nation. And
we're saying no.
And we'll probably say no, but first I want to at least express my view of what a Christian nation would be. It would be a nation where the church was totally intertwined with the government, that there was no separation between church and state. It would be a theistic society, much like Iran or Saudi Arabia, where the imams and the mullahs are the ones who really rule the country. The government rulers allow them to have pretty free reign over how people are treated in order that they keep the crowd under control. And so we're not to that point yet. But today, I think most people believe that the United States is a pretty deeply divided country in many respects. And one of the major ones is over the question of religion versus secularism. And I think we're having to deal with this more and more.
I would say it's more divided than that. It's divided among Christians. It always has been, because even when you have, saying a Christian nation, you have so many diverse views of what it means to be a Christian.
Yes.
And that's what caused us to have the notion of church-state separation in the first place, is because you had the Puritans not wanting to be Catholics, not wanting to be other kinds of Christians, and so they burned and jailed some fellow Christians because they were the wrong kind from their point of view.
Sure. Well, hopefully we're past the jailing and burning today. Whether we'll get back to it or not,
Stalin,
I don't know.
over in Stalin's group, you have atheists doing the same thing with atheism, different versions of atheism.
Yeah. But I'll say in Edward Gibbon's monumental work on the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, he quoted the statement, I don't know whether it was or whether he quoted it from one of the Roman orators or what, but he said, in ancient Rome, the common people believed all religions were true, and the philosophers believed all religions were false, and the magistrates believed all religions were useful. And it seems to me that that's sort of the situation that we are in today, where our chief magistrate, who doesn't seem to be really very religious, finds religion to be very useful for his purposes.
That's why our founding fathers found out the hard way that you have to separate church and state, because otherwise those who are in political power are going to use the particular religion they can use to dominate other people.
Yeah, I mean, Trump won 81% of the evangelical vote, and he wouldn't have won the election without it. And that's what he calls his base. That's what the actual base is. That without that hardcore evangelical vote, the Republicans really wouldn't be in office, dominating in office much of anywhere, as far as I can see. But let's look at some of the people that Trump has put in cabinet positions. Here's Betsy DeVos, has no experience in education. She thinks schools are places to do God's work, and she wants to go whole hog into a voucher system for the country, essentially gutting the school programs, public school programs. Here's Secretary of Energy Rick Perry. When he was governor of Texas, he declared 3 days of prayer for rain in April of 2011. That was the way he wanted to alleviate the drought. Well, for the following 4 months, the situation became increasingly worse. The prayer days were no more efficacious than a tribal rain dance, basically. Still, Perry persisted in his religious fantasies by saying, we have to fix this. God has to fix this. This is apparently how Perry goes about solving problems. If he comes to the point where he's having a little bit of trouble, why he prays hard.
I have a feeling that's the way he goes about thinking he gets votes.
Well, you lived in Texas
I
for a
don't
long
think the guy's that ignorant to think he's going to solve a problem that way.
I don't know. The most egregious example, to my way of thinking, was appointment of Jeff Sessions as Attorney General. When he was coming up for confirmation hearings, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse suggested that lists were already circulating that there might be purges or demotions of career appointees in the Justice Department. And Whitehouse wondered whether Sessions would have a problem with career lawyers with secular beliefs. In the past, he had criticized department attorneys for being secular, apparently at some meeting. Sessions replied that he used that language to differentiate between people who recognize objective truth and those who take positions in which truth is not sufficiently respected. And Whitehouse replied with a leading question saying, and a secular person has just as good a claim to understanding the truth as a person who's religious, correct? At which point Sessions responded, well, I'm not sure. For a few seconds, the Senate chamber seemed to go completely silent. Now, this is scary, that you're getting people into the government who have this view that they want to promote a Christian agenda through the government.
Yeah, usually these are people, which is ironic, who have very little understanding of religion. And that's why they do this. They don't understand the difficulties of trying to say the Christian view, because there's so many various versions of Christianity. Okay. And that's what the founding fathers understood, is that if you're going to have a peaceful society, give each of them the freedom to develop their own religion, but don't impose it through the state.
Well, right, and that's exactly the point. I mean, I would maintain that what the founding fathers had in mind was that everybody should have freedom to worship, but not freedom of religion in the sense that they could let that override their obligations to society as a whole, which is what we're seeing in a lot of these religious freedom restoration acts, which are Jim Crow acts aimed at the gay community, the LGBT community.
Yeah. Yeah, if somebody wanted to have a rule against drinking, then try not to get into the religion. I don't drink.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with whether I'm a theist or an atheist. I just don't drink because I saw too much drinking going on when I was young and thought it was pretty stupid.
Yeah.
Same with smoking. That's not a religious thing for me.
Right.
Is I like to have clean lungs.
Well, but we, of course, did go through a period where liquor was illegal, right, during Prohibition.
Oh, I
And it
remember
turned
that.
out to be such a disaster
Exactly.
that it was repealed when 1933 or 32, 33.
Well, we got
somewhere.
Cosby right up the road here. We had Bootleg County for a while.
Yeah. It's not that it stopped
All
people
those
from...
nice people up there. Some of them had to live with the bootleggers.
Sure.
But in fact, I remember as a kid, what's now Kingston Pike, you could hear the roar of the bootlegging cars coming through.
Thunder Road.
Thunder Road is what it was.
Okay. Well, all right. So that's a little bit of an introduction. But what I kind of wanted to concentrate on were some of the ideas that I've seen appearing in the paper or on the
go
net, et cetera, these days. And one of them was a person who wrote a letter to the News Sentinel recently. He wrote it in response to a person who had said America became a Christian nation in reaction to the Depression, okay? And that sort of outlined this. It doesn't make much sense to me anyhow. But the response of this guy was that he said that America was always a Christian nation. That it didn't become Christian, it was born Christian. And that the Puritans who populated the New World came here to escape religious persecution in England and on the continent. Now, the Puritans didn't really come here for religious freedom. They came because they were kicked out of England. They wanted to control the Church of England. Don't you think that's
Well, it's both.
right?
Part of it was kicked out, but they also left because they wanted more freedom for their religion. The problem is, once they got here, they didn't want freedom for other people with their version of religion.
But they wanted to control the Church of England.
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, you had a lot of groups.
I mean,
going.
there was this group that we later called the Puritans. They were called separatists. They wanted nothing to do with the Church of England. They wanted to be by themselves. And they originally went to Holland.
Oh, yeah, Holland, yeah, you had a lot of separatists over there.
Yeah, and they fit in well.
Yeah.
But after a while, they thought their kids were becoming too Dutchified, so to speak, and they wanted to come to America, okay? So they weren't so interested in controlling other people. But the later group called the Puritans, they really wanted to control the Church of England.
That's right.
And
they wanted to purify the Church of England.
Right.
That's what they.
Exactly.
Now the Baptists then, and a lot of modern Baptists like Billy Graham and Jerry Falwell have no understanding apparently of Baptist history. But the early Baptists were in favor of church-state separation.
Yeah, very much
And
so.
they wanted, because they wanted to have liberty, and they wanted liberty for other people because their view of religion, that's why they believed in adult baptism rather than baptizing kids, is if you're going to get baptized, you ought to be an adult and making a decision.
Right, right.
And that's freedom of choice.
Kravnik and Moore, in their nice little book called The Godless Constitutions, nice little monograph that describes the events leading up to the development of the American Constitution and what the different states thought, et cetera, emphasize very much the point that you just made. Roger Williams, who was the leading light in the early Baptist church there in Rhode Island, he wanted complete separation of church and state because he did not want the government interfering with religion.
I went to a Baptist seminary. My theology teacher was a staunch evolutionist, and he got a lot of criticism from some of the preachers. And so we just invented debates and called it education. It was surprising to some of these preachers. In fact, I was at a college once, in which at the Baptist church they invited the philosophy teacher and the chairman of the religion department to debate, and they had diverse views. And the president called them both in and denounced them. But the philosophy teacher knew he was not going to be there long anyhow, because he wrote up all kinds of stuff and distributed to the students, and they distributed it all over the campus to taught them their Baptist history.
Yeah.
Lay people can speak up.
Yeah, well, you know, the Southern Baptist Convention was founded basically because the Southerners did not want to take black people into their churches, as many of the Northerners were proposing. And so I think that has made part of that schism there, that the Northerners, they're still more independent. The churches are more independent.
Exactly.
Whereas the Southern Baptist Convention is more homogeneous.
Well, now you have a split among the Southern Baptists. Now you had a group called the Cooperative Baptists.
Oh, okay, I don't know.
And they are opposed. And of course, the Southern Baptists now have given up their racism. I mean, that's That's so. But you could say, I mean, Baptists have a joke: five Baptists, and you'll find a split. Because it's part of their tradition. Is their emphasis on independence. And that's part of our tradition.
That's why a lot of congregations are independent. They don't belong to the convention.
Congregationalism.
Right. Well, this fellow who stated that America was born that way sort of followed up, bolstering his case by saying the founding fathers were all Christians, and that Christianity is still the most popular religion in the U.S., and about 70% of the people are nominally Christians in the population. But this misses the point. I mean, he's failing to distinguish between self-identification of people, so far as religion, and the constitutional basis of the republic.
It's a good point. Good point.
And so his identification as the earliest settlers and all the founding fathers as Christians is very simplistic, because while most of them belonged to the church and had some church affiliation, which was almost required in those days in some sense.
Jefferson wrote a book on Jesus. He was denounced as an atheist.
That's
what we're trying to say is early Christianity was itself already greatly divided. And so to say that this is a Christian nation already overlooks the fact that it was already divided.
Right, and there's I can see two main problems with his assertion, resting on the founding fathers' affiliations. And the one is that despite the fact that they may have belonged to a church, they had individualistic ideas. Many of them had a deistic core to their thinking. A lot of them did not believe in Jesus was the Son of God, you know.
Well, you have Unitarians.
And the Unitarian influence was growing.
And then you have Trinitarians who are also Universalists. They believe in the Trinity, but they don't believe that if you're not a member of the Christian group, you go to hell. That's why they're called Universalists. And so, I mean, you have just enormous diversity among Christians today.
Right. And
and the founding fathers thought to have that division was better than imprisoning or killing off another group.
Right. And as I say, you bring up Jefferson. Jefferson was hounded by the Philadelphia clergy as an atheist most of the time.
But he wasn't.
And we know
he was a deist.
And we know he sort of wrote his own Bible in the sense he went through, and he cut out all the references to miracles and magic in the New Testament because he believed the Christian moral teachings were very fine. And he wanted to keep those, but he wanted to reject everything else.
And that's what the word common sense means, literally. You've got a lot of sensible ideas. You try to bring them together in common and see what you're going to learn from each other, like the golden rule. Any sensible atheist would say, it makes sense. treat others the way you like to be treated,
Sure.
Respect for each other.
Exactly.
So learn from each other.
Yeah, exactly. And again, one final point for this guy is that the original Treaty of Tripoli was signed by John Adams and ratified universally by the Congress unanimously. It was, 1797 it was passed, stated specifically that the government of the United States is not a Christian government. And so here these people, they go back, they try to pick up any little tidbit they can and blow it up to make a case for themselves where it's easily dismissed.
Yeah.
And
Well, this kind of way, if you have Muslims and Christians and atheists and Jews and Hindus all living together, you can have a peaceful society. I mean, I remember once having a Muslim call me on the phone from Palestine
oh,
to ask them for help in marriage relationship. Well, this is what people do, is they learn that you don't have to agree on everything to learn from each other.
yes, sure. I agree with you.
And I learned a lot from Martin Luther, because I thought Luther's trying to deal with the Catholic Church developed a kind of a psychology. Now, he didn't call it psychology, but it makes a lot of sense if you translate it into a psychological view. He was making a lot of progress, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, he had a lot of prejudices too.
Well, that's why he's like you and me
Yeah.
as a human. That's why we need each other
Yeah,
to point out our prejudices.
yeah, okay. Well, I don't know. The other point I have about this is when you start going back and referring to people in the 1700s, as Christians, and therefore we should be a Christian country today, even if we're true then, completely ignores the fact that you can learn things, that you can progress
Exactly.
in your understanding. And if you look at many of these people, the so-called founding fathers, if they were alive today, you'd have to come to the conclusion that at least be agnostic or atheists, just simply because, we have this thing called science.
Well,
where we learn
agnosticism
things.
is just a word, means you don't know everything.
Yes.
It's gnosis and with an "un" in front of it.
Yes.
And everybody, and somebody, in that respect, every believer is an unbeliever. If you're a Muslim, when it comes to the view of Jesus as the Son of God, you are a skeptic.
I think that I'd have to go back and check on this, but I think that word agnostic was originally coined by Thomas Huxley, who was so-called Darwin's bulldog, in the sense that if there were a God, you could not possibly know
That's what
anything
it means.
about it.
The little a just
Yeah.
means un.
Right.
And gnosis means knowledge, Greek
Right.
for knowledge. It
Right.
means you don't know.
Yeah.
That's all.
But in the sense that a God is so different and so far beyond the human that you can't know. Not just that you don't, but that you can't.
Yeah, now, if he would go that far, that's making a claim.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but that's a viewpoint. Your point is, though, that when you have religious freedom, then you have diverse views even of what agnosticism means.
Oh, sure.
And you can learn and say, well, I think I was right, but now I see your view. Now I think I'm wrong. That's what rational thinking is.
Yeah. Well, people, I think people misuse the word. They seem to think it means, well, there can be a God, there can't be a God, and you don't know, it's 50-50, which is the wrong way to really view the word here. So in any case, I think we're just about at the point here where maybe we want to take a program break.
Oh, go ahead.
And so...
Okay, in case you are just tuning in, this is Freethought Forum, a program sponsored by various groups. One is the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Freethought Forum is funded jointly by them and by individual contributions. shows are lively, at least we hope so. And today on Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Community Access Television. You can also see it streamlining outside Knoxville area. Just go to ctvknox.org.
Right. So this is a call-in show, and we're live today, May 16th. And viewers can call in now to the number on the screen or tweet them to us at FFTVKNOX.
Okay, the Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK, meets 2 times a week. Have evening meetups for fun and conversation and so forth. Its purpose is to supply a venue for community, camaraderie, and outreach to groups like agnostics and atheists and free thinkers and like-minded people and here in East Tennessee.
Okay, so can we run our promo now?
Do you prefer the scientific method over supernatural beliefs? Are you concerned about religious leaders and organizations imposing their values and rules on your body, your family, and the rest of our society? Well, take comfort in the fact that you're not alone. The Rationalists of East Tennessee meets weekly for fellowship and provides a forum for people who support skeptical thinking and rational discussion of these and other issues. To find out more information or to find out about our next meeting, visit us on the web at www.rationalist.org. Do you find If you live in or around the Knoxville area and are questioning your religious beliefs or simply believe in one less God than everyone else, well, you're not alone. The Atheist Society of Knoxville is a fun and friendly group of people just like you that meets twice a week at a bar or restaurant. We meet every Tuesday night following the show at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria for happy hour. You'll find our group either inside or on the patio. Look for Richard Dawkins' silver-jacketed book, The God Delusion, standing upright on the table. On Fridays, we meet at Agave Azul or the Beard and Beer Market. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't. We all question what we believe at one point in our lives. If this is the time for you, come join us for food, drink, conversation, and fun. If you live in or around the Knoxville area...
Okay, well, here we are back to the program.
religious-
The Rationalists of East Tennessee has Sunday activities involving lively presentations and discussions of subjects, topical and timeless. Once a month, we get together for a book club meeting. You need not have read the book, but it helps.
Okay. And both the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee agree to help provide a social outlet where you can find out if you don't believe in God or if you do. You're not alone. In other words, have good rational discussion.
Right. Okay, so let's get back to some of these things that pop up on the web here, and this one really, I thought was outrageous. It really ticked me off. It's not particularly new. It's been there for a couple of years, but back on September 10th, 2014. This article was authored by a guy named Brian Fisher, and the thrust of the article is that no atheist should be permitted to serve in the military because military service should rightly be reserved for those who are willing to die for what America stands for. And what America stands for is a belief in God as the source of our rights. I mean, that almost turns my stomach, quite frankly, to read stuff like that.
I don't get upset because it can't get upset over every ignorant statement that comes along.
I know, but
Go ahead.
We'll do this, and then we'll follow up on on a little bit here. So this guy dismisses the religious test referred to in Article 6 of the Constitution, which says there should be no religious test for office. As a test against specific Christian faith, specific Christian sects, not a test, for atheists at all. Okay, and he says that states can enact any sort of religious test they want. Now this is stupid. I mean, because again, when the Constitution was being debated, most of the states had some religious test for office, but they gave them up before or very soon afterwards. Most of them did.
They had to. It's unconstitutional.
Yeah, it was a couple or three, but I found out that apparently it was 1961 till the very last one was gotten rid of because it was declared unconstitutional. It took that long to come to court, but by that time, within a few years, they had all gotten rid of those religious tests for public office, and in fact, Jefferson. That was one of his pride and joys, that he got rid of it in Virginia legislature on it. Okay. Well, anyhow.
Well, here's something I think my Baptist teachers, when I was in the Baptist, said church-state separation is one of the best things ever happened to the churches.
Yeah.
He said that way you can have religion because you know that it's what you have chosen for yourself, not what the state prescribes for you.
Right.
And it shows respect for the individual to have church-state separation.
Right. But this guy that I just read, what I was just referring to, I'm sure that a lot of atheists be really pissed off.
That's the 16th century.
I know. But that's a type of government that a lot of these theists want. And we don't have it. And I hope we don't. But I'm a little less sanguine about that than I was 6 months ago.
No.
So we'll see about it. But let me follow up on that. You say, well, this guy's kind of a crackpot. Following up on this sentiment, there's a Tennessee state representative named Micah Van Huss. And he proposed the state constitution be amended to state that God is the source of Tennesseans' liberties. Now, the measure received a 3-3 vote in the House Civil Justice Subcommittee when it was first brought up, and didn't pass because those measures need a majority. Okay. Then I think somebody might have brought it up again, but I don't know what happened to it. Anyhow, the proposed addition would have read, "We recognize that our liberties do not come from governments, but from Almighty God." Now, I've never seen a document signed by God that specified our liberties, quite frankly.
Well, you have people signing documents in his name. But they're all human.
Yes, but if this were to pass, or if this comes up, I would demand to see that document signed by God, and I would demand to see the press conference where it happened.
They'd want it fingerprinted.
It seems that history seems to show that the Bill of Rights were created without God sitting in at the Constitutional Convention. On the other hand, if liberties come from God, I think we should presume anything's implicitly permitted unless God explicitly denies it, preferably in his own handwriting.
Well, once you get into that, you can interpret it. In other words, anytime you pronounce the word God, you always have a human being interpreting what it means.
Yes.
Even if the Bible is said to be the Word of God. How many versions do you have of interpretations?
Absolutely.
That's why you have different denominations.
God is very shy, I've noticed. Okay.
Well, if you're a Christian, you'd have to say God is very, very forgiving of Christian interpreters.
Well, maybe so. So anyhow, if you say all our liberties come from God, then who takes away our God-given liberties? It's mostly federal and state governments. These are the people who put restrictions on your liberties, right?
Well, and what's interesting is traditionally those who took away the liberties did so in the name of God. It was one religious group taking away the religious liberties of other religions.
But as you point out, it's not because God actually showed up and told them to do it.
Exactly.
Right?
It's always interpreting God.
Well, this would create a real can of worms if this amendment actually passed Tennessee legislature, and got put on a ballot. And people have to approve the change, because God would have to appear as a witness when the constitutionality of subverting the people's power was challenged in court, and I don't think there are too many guys who would go for requiring that.
I don't think so.
But anyhow, the point is that that you have these people who want to institutionalize these ideas, in the government, and they haven't yet. So we're still not a Christian nation. But we have to always be vigilant.
Well, we saw what happened with trying to make a Muslim nation. You have same problem is whose version of Islam.
Yeah.
I mean, you have diversions with all religions. They have their different denominational differences.
Right.
And if you use the sword to back it up, that's the only way you can resolve the difference. Is just kill off one group.
Right. Well, the Saudis and the Iranians, they have a standoff right now, but it's a division between the Shiites and the Sunnis that are there. And in fact, the reason we have a real mess in Iraq now is because we didn't understand these problems that could arise when we appointed al-Maliki, basically appointed him, supported him to be the leader there in Iraq, and we didn't realize how much religion came into play in dividing the government, and that if you put someone in charge who is a real advocate of one sect,
one version, then you alienate the other.
Alienate the others. And this is what you say, we have to have dialogues and, talk and at least be tolerant of other people. And the failure for that to happen in Iraq has just made this a festering sore, ongoing festering sore. Okay.
Yeah, I pointed out once at a group that all believers are skeptics in the sense that not all Christians are believers in Islam. And so it means all these Christians who are not Muslims are skeptics of the claims and the same of the Mormons. If you are a Christian of a certain kind, you don't think Joseph Smith got those golden plates as divine revelation.
No.
And you don't think all those spiritual interpretations are all those spiritual.
No.
You just think they're human beings. They're conjectures.
It's like somebody said, well, if you go up to a Christian, you can say, well, you're as much of an atheist as I am. It's just that I have one less God to believe in.
Well, yeah. Well, that's what monotheism is, from the viewpoint of polytheism, is very skeptical. They're unbelievers. They don't believe in all these gods.
Yeah.
So early Christianity is a form of skepticism.
Yeah. Well,
to believe anything means that you are also a skeptic because you cannot believe everything.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So unbelief is a part of being a believer.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's essential. Otherwise, you can't even think.
Yeah. Here's one that might be more up your line. Was America founded on Christian values?
Well, put it this way. There were values long before Christianity came into existence. And those are what I call human values. The Golden Rule existed long before Christianity.
Yeah.
It existed when mothers, we talked about this, when mothers say, Johnny, don't treat your sister or your brother that way. How would you like to be treated that way?
Yeah.
That's the Golden Rule.
Right.
Mothers had been teaching it long before Moses or anybody like that came into existence.
But the point is that there may be some Christian values that people like. As you say, the golden rule, if you think that's a Christian value. But I don't see it anywhere in the Constitution. I don't see it anywhere in any governing laws. If it were, we'd have a hell of a lot nicer society here, I think.
Well, a lot of times you could say that the people who come together to write a constitution have already brought values with them that they learned from their mothers and their aunts and their uncles and
Sure.
their cousins. And then they try to, in other words, they're trying to say, we want a society in which we can live together in peace and harmony.
Mm-hmm.
And so we presuppose the values that we have developed over the centuries, long before Christianity,
Right, exactly.
long before Islam.
I mean, you know, if you say, well, don't kill, Christian value. Well, that was in the Code of Hammurabi.
Well,
You know.
you had codes. If you didn't have a code against killing, you and I wouldn't have been here in the first place.
No, we wouldn't.
and the code of kindness, that's absolutely essential for developing a family life.
I agree with you, but I find it nowhere legislated.
Mm-hmm.
So from that point of view, I don't think America is a Christian country because, as
Of
you
course
say, that's common to all religions
In all cultures.
all
That are-
atheists.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course, yeah.
so
Good.
there's-
Just if they're going to survive and not kill each other off, they got to develop something like the golden rule.
right, right. And I think it was Confucius who, maybe some 500 years before Jesus, said,
Mm-hmm.
do not do unto others that which you do not wish done unto you.
Yeah. And it's the same meaning.
Okay, well, I tried to look up what Christian values are, and I found all kinds of things that weren't coherent or that different quite a bit, you know.
Yeah.
But I did find just one where they were pretty specific, and it listed the core Christian value as having God first in our lives. This means continually seeking His righteousness and totally relying on Him. As humans, we have freedom of choice to decide what is right or wrong, but if we value God, we will look to Him for what is right or wrong. Now, that's nowhere in our Constitution.
Of course not. No. No. In fact, what the Constitution is based upon is when you have people talking about what God's view is and God's will, you have human beings interpreting that
Yeah,
already.
exactly.
And
That's the
they're human.
point.
The theory of the Bible as the infallible Word of God is a human theory.
Yeah.
And when I was studying in the seminary, we criticized that theory. In fact, my theology teacher, was an evolutionist.
Yeah, you just said that.
Yeah, and
Interesting.
and then somebody, he said, how do you reconcile that? He said, if God's going to create, it's got to be through evolution.
Yeah. So I want to come back to just one more little bit of topic here, which we touched on
Sure.
before, and it's the failure of the theists to deal with modernity. And I gave a talk on this a few months back, I think in December or something, and defined modernity as the search for absolute knowledge in science, technology, society, politics, by discovering facts by which these institutions work.
Well,
And you do, as you go through history, you do learn things. At least you should.
yeah, the word absolute knowledge,
Yes, that's probably not good.
yeah, I mean,
I
I'm a
don't-
human being,
I-
and
I-
I've made too many revisions.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I take the scientific point of view that what we do is we look for the most probable solutions to problems
I
or how
like-
things work.
I like
and that
Karl
may change in
Popper's
time.
book, Conjectures and Refutations.
Ah, okay.
You make a conjecture, you try to shoot it down so you can develop a better conjecture.
Ah,
And
okay.
that seems to me what the scientific method's mostly about.
Yeah. Well, I think the point I'm trying to make is that, again, Christians are relying on these books in the Bible that are 2,000 to 3,000 years old, or something of the sort, as if you know, they're carved forever in the fabric of the universe.
You know, that's more like fundamentalist Christians.
Yeah, but that's the kind of thing you see creeping see creeping into the politics.
Well, the
which
politicians,
worries me.
these kind of politicians you're talking about, I don't call very much versed in Christian tradition. They are politicians who pick out this and that to try to.
I know, but I think
Go
that's not the point. The point is that they will try to exploit the people who voted for them
That's a
and
good
who
point.
believe fundamentally and implicitly that the Bible is inerrant.
Yeah, I rather doubt that most of these politicians would even understand what the theory of the Bible as inerrant even means. They're not even that well versed in.
Yeah, but
Christian theology.
you approach it from point of view of man who is educated.
Well, that's my point. Is these politicians are not educated in religion.
Well, the average person is not either. Anyhow, I just wanted to bring up one last point here, and this resistance to modernity is no more obvious than in backwoods Tennessee. And Rhea County Courthouse famous is the site of the Scopes trial, all right, back in 1926, 25, whatever, where Scopes was accused of breaking the law by teaching evolution. Well, now, and of course, they make a big deal out of it down there. They have a play, they reenact the trial, et cetera, every year. And now the county's Historical Society has approved an installment of Clarence Darrow's statue. They've had one of William Jennings Bryan since, I think, 1905 down there. But longtime activist, Lady June Griffiths, tells us she's one of the many taking a stand. In any case, she says that, I don't know exactly, I guess I lost my track here, but anyhow, she says that God is not pleased. She knows that God is not pleased with this. And she is outraged that they would put a statue of an atheist up next to a statue of a Christian. Where the Christian obviously is the superior person. Okay?
Well, the question is, here's what my mother would say: superior in what?
Yeah.
In carpentry or what?
Yeah. Well, presumably ethics.
For example, whenever you hire a carpenter, you ask if he's a Christian or an atheist or a Buddhist. The main thing you know is, can he do the job?
Yes.
Or she do the job?
Right, exactly. I don't have any qualms about hiring anybody for a job who is competent to do the job.
Yeah.
Okay.
You
But
don't worry about the religion.
Right. Obviously, she's basing her views on what she perceives to be his morals here. Well, we only have about a minute to go, so it's time to start wrapping things up. So get out your pen and paper.
Okay. This has been a Freethought Forum program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and another group called the Rationalists of East Tennessee.
So please send us feedback. Leave voicemail at 865-272-9060 or email us at freethoughtforum@yahoo.com. And you can see the show most Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. Sometimes we get bumped by the beer board. Anyhow, so our thanks to Riv Mutsu and Leah Rollins for technical help, and to the staff at CTV KNOX, and to all of our callers who didn't call.
Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for being with us.